Dr. Richardson continued using sophisticated stroke rehabilitation terminology that Arthur found both impressive and believable. She described brain recovery and neural therapy with medical expertise that seemed legitimate. Your stroke affected the motor cortex, but surrounding areas can be retrained to compensate through intensive neural stimulation. Our proprietary therapy combines electrical stimulation with cognitive retraining to rebuild neural pathways. She explained that Arthur's educational background meant he would understand the science behind brain recovery. Arthur had indeed been reading about neuroplasticity and was frustrated with his therapy progress. Teachers like yourself typically respond excellently to our cognitive motor integration protocols because your brain is already trained for complex learning. This therapy could restore 70–80% of your lost arm function. Dr. Richardson created urgency by explaining that stroke recovery windows were limited, and Arthur's 6-month timeline was approaching the critical intervention period when meaningful improvement remained possible. We need to begin intensive neuroplasticity therapy within 1 week to maximize your recovery potential. This specialized treatment costs $19,500, but it could restore the independence you've lost since your stroke. The Neural Recovery Protocol. It was a Thursday afternoon in April when Linda's phone rang with a call that would sound disturbingly familiar to anyone who remembers Arthur Gonzalez's story. She had just finished her speech therapy exercises when her caller ID showed what appeared to be a Neurological Research Institute number. "Mrs. Thompson? This is Dr. James Wilson from the National Speech Recovery Center. I'm calling about revolutionary speech restoration therapy that could dramatically improve your communication abilities based on your specific stroke recovery pattern." Linda felt immediate interest mixed with caution. Like Arthur before her, she hadn't requested any speech evaluations, but Dr. Wilson continued with the same practiced neurological authority that had fooled Arthur, using official speech therapy terminology and creating immediate recovery hope. "Mrs. Thompson, we've developed breakthrough neural pathway reconstruction, specifically for speech centers damaged by stroke. Your recovery timeline and speech pattern make you an ideal candidate for this innovative communication restoration program." The caller knew Linda's stroke details, her previous career as a librarian, and even referenced her current speech therapy progress. The same type of personal information that had made Arthur's scammers seem so legitimate. Dr. Wilson spoke with impressive knowledge about speech recovery. "I need to explain how significant this opportunity is. Traditional speech therapy often plateaus after 8 months, but our neural reconstruction protocols can continue recovery for years by activating alternative speech pathways. The network's evolved strategy." Dr. Wilson continued his explanation using the same sophisticated neurological terminology approach that had trapped Arthur, but refined for speech rehabilitation. He described brain recovery and communication therapy with impressive medical fluency clearly developed through multiple victim encounters. Your specific stroke location affected Broca's area, but surrounding regions can be retrained through intensive neural stimulation. Our proprietary speech reconstruction combines electrical therapy with cognitive retraining to rebuild communication pathways. He explained that Linda's librarian background meant she would understand the importance of communication recovery. Linda had indeed been frustrated with her speech progress and was eager to improve her communication abilities. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been treating stroke speech recovery for 18 years, and your communication pattern is one of the most treatable when addressed with advanced protocols. Patients with your exact profile who receive immediate intervention recover 80–90% of their speech abilities." Like the network that had targeted Arthur, Dr. Wilson created hope by claiming that Linda's educational background meant she understood the value of clear communication, and that specialized therapy could restore her professional-level speaking ability. "We need to begin intensive speech reconstruction therapy within 72 hours to maximize your communication recovery potential. This specialized treatment costs $21,000, but it could restore the speaking abilities that define your professional identity. The Insurance Deception Network. Dr. Wilson used the exact same insurance manipulation strategy that had worked on Arthur. He explained that Linda's Medicare would cover the speech therapy, but the emergency nature required immediate payment that would be reimbursed once the treatment was documented. Emergency speech reconstruction therapy requires upfront payment because the neural stimulation equipment must be calibrated for your specific brain damage patterns. Once we complete therapy and submit the communication recovery reports to Medicare, you'll receive full reimbursement within 45 days. He provided Linda with specific Medicare speech therapy codes and neural reconstruction authorization numbers that sounded official. The same type of fake medical bureaucracy that had convinced Arthur. Dr. Wilson seemed to have the same detailed knowledge of rehabilitation insurance procedures. I understand this seems expensive, but consider the value of restored communication versus the isolation of permanent speech limitations. This therapy can return the articulate speaking ability that made you successful as a librarian. Dr. Wilson created the same type of artificial scarcity pressure that Arthur had faced, explaining that the specialized speech equipment was in limited availability, and Linda needed to secure her treatment before other stroke survivors exhausted the available therapy slots. Based on your speech recovery profile, Mrs. Thompson, we've reserved one of our last intensive communication restoration programs for your case. If you can't secure this therapy today, the next availability won't be for 10 weeks. The payment trap. Linda felt the same overwhelming combination of recovery, hope, and urgency that had trapped Arthur. Dr. Wilson had created such convincing speech restoration promises that questioning the treatment seemed like accepting permanent communication limitations. She agreed to the speech therapy. Dr. Wilson used the identical payment approach that had worked on Arthur, guiding Linda through wire transfer requirements to secure her emergency treatment and ensure rapid therapy initiation. The Speech Reconstruction Laboratory requires immediate wire transfer to configure your personalized neural stimulation equipment. This is standard protocol for intensive communication recovery, when speech restoration is time-critical. At the wire transfer location, Linda experienced the same hesitation Arthur had felt. Dr. Wilson, still on the phone, used the same coaching techniques to help Linda explain the payment was for emergency speech therapy, which sounded medically legitimate. Linda sent $21,000, believing she was investing in communication recovery. Dr. Wilson assured her that therapy would begin within 48 hours and provided the same type of fake medical follow-up promises that Arthur had received. Mrs. Thompson, you've made a communication-saving decision. This neural reconstruction will restore speech clarity you thought was lost forever and return your professional communication abilities. The devastating pattern. Like Arthur's experience, Linda never received any legitimate treatment. The phone numbers became disconnected, and there was no record of National Speech Recovery Center. When Linda's panic drove her to see a real speech therapist for evaluation, she learned the horrible truth. Mrs. Thompson, your speech recovery is progressing normally for your timeline. There's no advanced therapy needed, and your communication abilities are improving steadily with standard treatment. You've been the victim of the same type of stroke scam that's been targeting recovery survivors. The real speech therapist had seen similar cases and immediately recognized the pattern. Linda learned that she had been targeted by the same criminal network that had scammed Arthur Gonzalez, but they had simply switched from fake arm rehabilitation to fake speech restoration therapy. Linda's case was immediately connected to Arthur's investigation when she reported the crime. FBI medical fraud investigators revealed that both Linda and Arthur had been targeted by the same sophisticated criminal organization operating across multiple states with specialized stroke recovery fraud divisions. The investigation showed that after Arthur's story gained media attention, the network had temporarily suspended their fake motor rehabilitation scams and pivoted to fake speech therapy scenarios using nearly identical psychological manipulation techniques. This is the same group that targeted teacher Gonzalez, investigators explained. They use the same victim databases, the same recovery hope tactics, and the same payment methods. They just switch the rehabilitation specialty based on what's getting public attention. Linda learned that the network had extensive databases of stroke survivor information obtained through illegal means, allowing them to target individuals with believable recovery scenarios tailored to their specific stroke-related limitations and professional backgrounds. The Stroke Fraud Network. Most disturbing was the discovery that Linda and Arthur were just two victims in a much larger network of stroke fraud targeting survivors nationwide. The investigation revealed dozens of similar cases involving fake rehabilitation emergencies, designed to extract large sums from hopeful stroke patients. The criminal network showed sophisticated specialization, with different teams focusing on motor rehabilitation, speech therapy, cognitive recovery, and mobility restoration, while maintaining the core psychological manipulation techniques that made their scams so effective. FBI investigators warned that the same network was likely developing new stroke fraud scenarios even as Linda's case was being investigated, potentially targeting survivors with fake balance therapy, memory restoration, or other fabricated rehabilitation interventions. Warning signs of the network. Linda identified the same red flags that Arthur had missed, showing how the network used consistent manipulation techniques across different stroke recovery specialties. Unsolicited calls about breakthrough rehabilitation treatments that patients never requested. The network relied on creating fake recovery breakthroughs to bypass rational thinking about experimental therapies. Immediate payment demands for Medicare-covered services. All victims were pressured to send large wire transfers before they could verify the treatments or consult with their actual rehabilitation specialists. Medical authority figures who knew detailed stroke information. The network used stolen medical data to create believable scenarios that seemed impossible to fake. Emergency treatments only available through wire transfer payments. Legitimate stroke rehabilitation is provided through established medical facilities with proper insurance processes and gradual treatment progression. The continuing fight. While Linda never recovered her $21,000, her case provided crucial evidence, linking multiple stroke fraud operations across the country. Her cooperation with investigators helped identify pattern connections that could prevent future victims. Linda learned the same lesson Arthur had discovered. Legitimate stroke recovery concerns are always addressed through established rehabilitation channels with proper evaluation procedures, never through unsolicited phone calls demanding immediate wire transfers. Most importantly, Linda's investigation revealed that the network was already preparing new stroke fraud scenarios targeting different recovery aspects, suggesting that more stroke survivors would face similar rehabilitation scam attempts in the coming months. Final thoughts. Linda's story proves that stopping individual stroke scammers doesn't end the threat to vulnerable survivors. These criminals operate as sophisticated networks that share resources, victim information, and successful manipulation techniques across multiple states and rehabilitation specialties. The connection between Linda's speech scam and Arthur's motor rehabilitation fraud shows how these networks adapt and evolve while maintaining their core strategy of exploiting recovery hopes for financial gain and preserving their victim databases for ongoing fraud operations. If you receive unexpected calls about urgent stroke treatments, remember both Arthur's and Linda's experiences. Hang up immediately and contact your actual rehabilitation providers to verify any recovery claims before taking action. The fight against stroke fraud networks continues, and understanding their connected operations is crucial for protecting yourself and other vulnerable stroke survivors from their evolving rehabilitation scam schemes. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.